Welcome to Podcast Perspectives, a show about the podcast industry and the people behind it. This is our second live recorded episode from South by Southwest at Podcast Movement Evolutions, brought to you by Sounds Profitable and Nemono. They're the little magnetic microphones that you see clipped to all of our shirts. They record in any sound environment and they sound great. We recorded this on a rooftop in Austin, Texas on a windy day with a bunch of speakers right behind us, and you can't tell at all. I highly recommend that you all check out nemono.co. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by three guests: Bumper co-founder Jonas Woost, Ad Results Media Director Taylor Bradbury, and Crooked Media VP of Sales Giancarlo Bizzarro. The three of you represent a combination of publishers, buyers, and data. And I'm going to break this conversation into 4 or 5 different buckets that I want to talk about that really cover different ways in which people can think about how to buy in podcasting with all the changes that we're seeing today. The first bucket is the why and the how. So I want to start with you, Giancarlo. Brands have a lot of choices on where they can spend their money. Why podcasting?
I think podcasting is mainstream. Let's just get that out of the way. Like, this isn't 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We've made it. Like, we're here, we're at South by. I think that if you look at the media channel as a whole, we've come to a point like in time where our content is now, at Crooked, we just announced a deal with MS Now. Like, we're going to be on their traditional television. And I think that if you look forward, like, you're going to see podcasting break into these types of spaces to compete. I think you're seeing it across the board. I don't want to name names, but I know that big holding cos, media holding companies are investing a lot of money into this. And I do feel like from an advertiser perspective, like the people that have been in on the ground floor, like the two of us, we've seen the success of this and we know what the validity and scale can be. So I would absolutely advocate for brands and others to come into this space right now.
And when you say validity and scale, what specifically, what's the difference between a podcast ad buy and buying an ad on LinkedIn or something?
Well, I mean, listen, if you're buying an ad on LinkedIn, you can spend an indefinite amount of money, but if you're buying a podcast ad, I'd say you get that audience, right? These are media's fragmenting, right? And when you look at podcasting as a whole, you're trying to reach people that you may not otherwise be able to reach. A lot of the people that buy from us know that our shows are probably one of the only places that they can reach our audience demographic. Obviously, you can get that in social. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, I think a podcast buy is more effective in the sense that you're getting somebody who's engaged and they want to be in the room having a conversation with, like we're doing right here with the people that they admire, trust, and respect. And to get somebody to convincingly tell you about a product, I think is far more beneficial than if you're just watching a television show and seeing an ad or scrolling through LinkedIn or whatever social media feed you decide to choose. It's going to have a much more effective impact on their day-to-day.
And mostly people who are hearing an ad on a podcast, somebody has sought out that podcast as opposed to just finding it as through scrolling their feed or something.
They've opted in.
We have 2 different ways to buy podcasts on this panel that are represented. You can buy it directly from a publisher.
Yep.
Crooked Media, or you can go through an agency like Ad Results. So why would somebody go through an agency as opposed to going through a publisher?
Yeah. Really, I think it comes down to an agency has been in the game for a long time. We know what to look for. We have all the relationships. We have fully developed teams in all departments. So anyone could go out and buy a podcast. That's not hard. You make those, you can talk to someone, you can get your foot in the door. But an agency is going to help make sure you're showing up in the right spot, you're negotiating the rates, you're getting the audio QA'd, and we get air checks, and we're making sure that things are dropping on time. You have someone who's doing the billing side of everything for you, which I know is a really big thing because we have a whole team dedicated to billing, whereas these direct brands are trying to funnel it all themselves. And so that's taking a lot of their attention away from what they could be doing because the agencies are there to make your life easier, essentially. At the end of the day, we treat the business like it's our money too. So we're gonna do everything on behalf of the client in the same way that they want to. And we're not gonna do anything without approval first. So approvals, we're not just gonna go out and just wing it and do what we want to. So those are all the reasons that I think agency is good.
So big brand comes to you, they want to spend $1 zillion. You guys have already spent $10 zillion on these 500 shows, so you already have the data of like what works really effectively and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And going back to you, Giancarlo, like big brand comes to you to spend $1 zillion. What can you do that an agency can't? Because you guys have like this intimate knowledge of all the shows that you represent at Crooked.
Well, I want to caveat, like, Ad Results are our clients and we do a lot of business together.
Sure.
So we're greatly appreciative.
And it's not either or. Like
of the agencies
you can do both.
that we work with.
Yeah.
I think that some of the brands that come to us are first-time podcast advertisers that are very aligned with us, either through the content that we make or because they align with us from a political standpoint, because we're a political, we do political news and talk, right? And so from that perspective, having been on the agency side, I'm going to give a plug to the agency. We kind of operate as if we were an agency. So our job at Crooked, and I'm not sure how many other podcast networks do this, is the way we set up our team is to act as a de facto agency. Obviously, we love working with agencies because it makes our jobs a lot easier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we have to be the first foray for somebody to come in, we can sometimes offer things that, maybe an agency who is buying 500, 1,000 types of shows isn't going to have the nuance of knowing who the host is, knowing what they like. Like, we can provide them that information, and they do a really good job of asking that, and we try to give them as much as we possibly can. But when you're dealing with a lot of properties, you might not necessarily have the specificity. But I don't think that's an agency problem. I think that's more, if you're looking at a big network that's selling 1,000 shows, they're not gonna have those relationships. So if you come to me and you ask me, hey, like, does your host have a pet? I can tell you, Jon Favreau, Tommy, and Lovett, they each have golden doodles, and they're in the office running around, so I can provide a little bit of nuance.
Do they all actually have golden doodles?
They all have golden doodles. They have Pundit, Luca, and Leo, and they come around the office and they'll play, and that's a really good data point that I can tell someone.
Yeah.
But obviously, we do things outside of just podcasting.
Yeah.
I think that if you're looking at the industry as a whole, we have live events. We've got this thing called CrookedCon. We had 2,500 people. We're going to double it this year. You can sponsor these things so that you can get a little bit deeper into what our community is accessing. But, we do act as if we are an agency, and it's nice to have agencies acting on that behalf for brands, because it's just less work for our team, which is far smaller than some of the major networks that have hundreds of salespeople.
Sure.
I find it remarkable how hard it can be, how hard it is to spend money in podcasting. Like, the amount of times because we do a bit of media buying ourselves, not that much, just in service of our clients to grow their shows. So we help clients grow their shows, and sometimes we buy ads on other shows, right? Kind of makes sense. The amount of times we've sent out emails to people and tell them, like, we have a budget, we would like to buy ads to promote this one, and we hear nothing back. We're talking like a serious percentage of people just never even respond.
Yep.
So having agencies, having people to help can really help. Of course, working with you is very easy, and of course, Cook is an amazing partner. But sometimes it's just a lot of work. There's a lot of back and forth, and the ad checks, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense to sometimes use an agency.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of understanding of how much work there is and how much back and forth there can be, especially when you get into those larger kind of events and going a little bit beyond the podcast and working with the partners in, social or events or custom segments. Like that's a big lift. And it's not something you can turn around in 1 or 2 days. Like, in a lot of cases, you go back and forth for weeks before you get something set up.
And Crooked is an example of a publisher that's very advanced. Often, if you're trying to buy ads on some publishers, like, they may not know how to set up a pixel or like what a brand may be looking for on a buy or something. So that's where like an agency can come in and be really helpful. I want to move on to the second bucket and really look at like the data and the analytics here, which Jonas is kind of the front runner, in my opinion, of kind of how that works in the space. I think a lot of people make assumptions on how podcasting works, how a listener is engaging with an episode, how much of that episode they complete, how many episodes of a show they listen to. Some of those assumptions are not correct. You, through your bumper dashboard, your company, you, Dan, and everyone else involved, has a lot of insight into a lot of different shows and how people are actually engaging with these different podcasts. So I was hoping that you could share a little bit of like some of these new learnings that you guys have come up with in the recent days. Very broadly, can you like speak to some of what you found?
Very broadly, we see a big problem in our industry, which is many brands do not invest enough into our medium because the data we give them is not good enough. Or good enough, it does not quite match the data they would get from other places. Like if I go to Meta, it's so easy to spend money and I'm getting data and there's a lot of insights that I'm getting. Not suggesting Meta's the best place, but at least those people that spend money are getting the data that they need. And we can't match that kind of data. We think we're missing out on a lot of dollars because of that. Anecdotally, we've heard that from many people saying like they're not like, please jump in.
Can I ask, like, on that point,
Yeah.
do you think that we're going to solve that with the continued fragmentation of video?
I think we can solve that, yeah.
You think we can solve that?
I think we can solve that.
And in your expert opinion, would you say that we're going to be able to solve that through the IAB, through Bumper?
That's a really
how
good
you get
question.
everybody to
Yeah.
agree? That's the key
Yes.
here, right? And from an
Great
agency
question.
perspective too. Yeah.
Indeed, that is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And I don't have a really good answer for that.
The previous interview that I did on this stage was with the CEOs of Acast, Libsyn, and the head of podcast at Odyssey.
Yeah.
And I asked this exact question.
Great.
And
Sorry, I didn't mean to skip the question.
no. It's I had the same response, and their response was really fun to listen to, and who knows if it'll work, but was basically that like all of the hosting platforms need to go to the distribution platforms with the same asks, and they all need a concerted effort to like get the same data back and make sure that we're able to like show up and ask for the same things that the brands want, that the publishers want. Sounds a lot like pie in the sky hopes and dreams, so we'll see.
Did they give any insight to how they imagine that working out? Because we
No.
didn't even get DI figured out after all these years. Like everyone's still doing everything differently. So how are
I want
we?
to come back to that.
Okay.
Now, I would argue, going back to the original question,
Yes.
data's already there. We don't actually need to ask for anything else. Okay, let's start with the big problem here, right?
Yeah.
We're not giving brands the same data they can get somewhere else. And it's sort of at the center of this problem is the following question. How many people have heard my ad? How many people have seen my ad?
Yeah.
6
don't
of
know.
one, half a dozen the other.
Sure, we don't know.
So.
We know how many ads were inserted. We know how many times a YouTube video was watched that had a mid-roll ad somewhere. How many people made it to that ad? This question, how many people have heard my ad, seems like a super reasonable question. And as an advertiser, I kind of like it's not really a good answer to say like, well, we don't know. That's the thing we need to figure out. And then from that are some derived sort of data points that we also need to find.
Well, you have come up with a lot of data points that show, like, generally speaking, how many people are downloading an episode,
Yep.
how much of that episode they've listened to.
Yep.
And on average, you're seeing that most shows are seeing like an average consumption rate of 70 to 90% depending on the length, and most ads are not being skipped. Is that generally correct?
All of that is correct, yes.
Okay.
And so the question is here, why are we not doing a better job communicating all those amazing stories? Like ad skipping is not really a thing. Often just 10% of people skip ads. In average, people listen to 74% of an episode. And but for a shorter episode, that goes out up to 80-something%. Like these are some really cool stories that we have where we can really show advertisers, when you buy with us, people make it to that point, especially in audio, they make it to that point. Why are we not sharing that right now? And the data is available right now. We don't actually need to go to anyone and ask for data. I can get that right now from Spotify, from YouTube, from Apple. The data is right there.
So given that we've kind of, like to your point, kind of solved RSS audio attribution for the most part, and now we're fragmenting video in a way that's essentially pushing people towards it, which we have less visibility, and people are buying on vibes. How do we build that into an attribution model? Like that's my next question right now. How do we?
We're going to talk about video in a second.
Okay.
But I want to ask Taylor, like, when you are selling ads to all the brands, like, how often are people coming back to you and saying, like, this didn't work or this did work really successfully? Like, I know you have pixel tracking on the RSS and everything, but like, anecdotally, how many times are people coming back to you and saying, we saw a huge lift in sales because of this?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, all of our clients are seeing a huge lift and they love what they're seeing. But I think there's a misunderstanding in terms of the kind of performance that you can expect to see in a channel like this versus what you're going to see in something like digital, where there is like a 1-to-1 like click ratio. You can see exactly who clicked on your meta ad. Whereas for podcasting, how many people actually heard it? What is my reach? What is my frequency across my whole campaign? How does that actually relate to the conversions that are coming through? So there's a learning curve for a lot of those new brands that come in who have never been in this space before, who are expecting something like a $10 CPA that they see in digital. It's not going to be the same. Like, it's just not. It's a little bit of a more premium product. You're getting oftentimes that host endorsement. You're paying for that. You're like building that trust and that relationship. That is what podcast is here for, to really convince your audience that they need to try this product. So I know that's a very long-winded answer to get back to your point. Is it's never the same for any client. We have to come to them with the facts, the figures, why we expected these results, why these results were good or not good, what we could do differently. As an agency, also taking the ownership when we do something wrong. Like,
Going back to video, like buying on vibes.
I love that.
I'd add something to what you said, though, Taylor, in the sense that I have clients that come to me and they say they're spending a lot on digital, right? And then they'll come to me and they'll be like, well, maybe we didn't see exactly what we wanted, like 1-to-1 what we're getting from digital, but we noticed is like our digital cost pers have gone down since we started advertising on podcasts. And it's like, of course, because people are hearing your ads, they're seeing the endorsements, and then they're going on social, and it is this model that's speaking to each other, right? And I hear that all the time from advertisers, and I think that, I don't know if your data backs that up as well.
Yeah,
but.
spot on. I mean, really looking at a mixed media like outlook.
Correct. Yeah.
You have to. There's
Advertisers like asking to buy on your video properties?
Yeah, we have some advertisers we do some social with. We have standalone video series that Ad Results has gratefully bought. We've launched this thing called PSA Breaking News. Cook Unity was on it. ZipRecruiter's about to be on it. Actually very grateful because we rolled it out this year and they've bought a lot of it. And bluntly, what we do is it's very hard for us because obviously when you're doing sort of rapid response videos, it's different than the podcast model where it's like, when the episode's going to drop, you can measure it. So yes, there's a little bit of a vibey element to buying it. But from our perspective, we know these videos are going to pop, right? Yeah. Because it's so relevant. It's the Epstein files, it's war, it's all these things. And we want to not cede the floor to traditional news, so we want to create something, and we can give an average of what we think it's going to be. You'll buy against it, and the first advertiser that we had on in January was Cook Unity, and they bought a number that we doubled. And obviously, we had a crazy month in news because when the world goes to hell, our stuff generally crushes. But for the most part, it's sad, but it's true. Yeah. But yeah, I think that on the video front, we're approaching things that way. All of our pods are simulcast.
So I want to ask you how you buy video ads, and I want to, you just said you can estimate what they're going to do, but
these are for our standalone video series.
Yeah, but how are you guys? So how are you buying it, and how are you selling it, in terms of actual dollars that you're spending?
Yeah. So we look at it in a few different ways. One is if it is a show that is simulcast, we try to loop it together with the normal baked-in ad reads that we're having. If it is
same CPM?
Yeah.
For us, yes.
Okay.
Most of the time, yes. When you get into the split CPMs, that just gets into muddy waters.
Yeah. And you're estimating how many impressions the video will do based on what previous videos did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, it is a gamble. Sometimes you're going to have a video that just takes off and you get 2 million download or views and it's just incredible. And then you have one that maybe the guest isn't as great, so it gets half the views. And so you look at the average to see how you want to come into the space. If we're looking at it, so the measurement part of this is the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
Because
Jonas, get ready. I'm going to ask you about this.
I'm aware. Yeah.
he's excited.
He's teen.
On the podcast front, we have the pixel attribution, which makes it a lot easier. And Podscribe does their modeling. Magellan has their new feature that they have for video. So we're getting there, but there's a lot of uncertainty. We have some clients who don't necessarily trust the Podscribe video.
How does it work?
Oh, goodness. I don't want someone from Podscribe to watch.
I can
and be
talk
like,
to it. I
Yeah.
mean, like, in the fairness, 2022, they came to me and they're like, do you want to use our attribution service? And I was like, for your clients, I was like, guys, I have, at the time, there was Pod Sites and Chartable, a big
neither of those
podcast
exist
platform,
now.
bought them and shut them down. Obviously, they still have analytics, but it's difficult
Very different
measurement.
now.
And they said, what's your biggest problem? I said, I can't, like, I have to go to YouTube and take my numbers and report them together. They solved it on the call. I was like, all right, we're going to use you. And I've worked with them significantly to try and figure this out, to build what I think agencies, direct clients want. They'll take a model of what's happening in RSS and they'll kind of position that over what's purportedly happening on video. But to Taylor's point, like, it's not 100% efficient. I think that they do as best as they can given the information. I love the fact if they could get into YouTube and measure my shows as a publisher, and if they could do it on Spotify video, that'd be fantastic. But I'm sure that if Jonas has any insights into this, I'd be all game to try it.
Would love. Yeah.
And Jonas, before you jump in, I'm very curious here. If you're comfortable, I'd love for you to also talk about the other solutions out there, like what Flightpath is doing, what Podstock is doing, and like how what Bumper is doing compares to that in terms of like the forecasting and everything.
So there's a lot of different things going on now.
Yeah.
Video. I can't solve the video attribution problem right now. We don't have that.
I don't think anyone
I don't
can.
know.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can.
Magellan is doing something very interesting, and I only read something about it earlier this week, so I don't have all of the data. But Magellan, and I know that they just launched a partnership with YMH to try to like roll this out for clients to test, but it's not necessarily a one-to-one because that doesn't exist, but it's a little bit more ingrained than just an estimated model number like Podscribe. So Magellan is something to keep an eye out on as they continue to roll out more.
The attribution side is tricky, and I'm glad there's other companies that do a really good job. We're much more focused on the audience verification. How many people have seen the ad? How many people have heard the ad? It's interesting what you say about the CPM for video and audio was the same, because I get it. It's sort of how do you mix it together? But we see very, very different consumption patterns between video and audio, like on two fronts, right? First of all, you're buying impressions on audio, on RSS, that might or might not turn into actual listening, i.e. there's downloads happening that might never, when no one hits play. But that doesn't happen in video. Right? When you buy like views, when you buy impressions and you're basically using the views as the counter there, well, you know, like views are views. But what you have on YouTube is that the retention curves are very, very different. Most people that are there for the first second are not there anymore after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Like the average retention on YouTube is very, very low. On audio, on the other hand, it's great. In mid-roll on audio, I love. In mid-roll on video, not quite as much. So we're mixing different things together right now, and the modeling becomes very difficult until we get to a point where we can use a different metric maybe that is not based on downloads or views, but based on like, well, how many people made it to the ad?
Do you see differentiation between standalone video versus, I'd say, we do our things, our shows are basically, you can watch it or you can listen to it. And I'm curious if there's a differentiation between those two factors, because I do feel like if I'm at the office and I don't want to get out my iPhone, I want to listen to something, I'm just going to throw it on. I might not watch it, but I still might be consuming it in my ear, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you see any metrics? Do you have any data along those lines?
On whether people actually have the screen open or not?
Well,
is
no,
that
I'm talking
kind of
about like the consumption habits on the video version of the show if people are just listening to it.
So this is what we're seeing with videos in terms of consumption habits. When someone has a lot of followers, subscribers, of course, on YouTube, and we see that a lot of the viewing behavior seems to be driven by subscribers.
Yeah.
So people already follow the show. Like,
Correct.
I love the show. I'm going to listen to it right now. We see these retention curves that look great. Average listen time, 20%, 30% on YouTube for like a full-length episode, half an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Great. When it's a video that goes, quote unquote, viral, it completely tanks.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as it shows up somewhere, which is great for the view count. Hey, I got 1 million views for this video. That's amazing. Well, how many people made it to the mid-roll? Not always as amazing. I'm not sure I quite answered your question, but it's all
I
over
hear
the
what
place.
You're saying.
Like
So like,
Yeah.
and we see it on some of our stuff that pops,
Yeah.
right? It could pop for a variety of reasons. The YouTube algorithm is a beast in and of itself, as you know, we both know. I think that what we try to do is, when we're selling at least, giving a very I hate to use this word, conservative average,
Sure.
because we don't want to ever under deliver. And until we can solve this, it's basically what podcasting was 12 years ago and what YouTube was ironically 12 years ago as well. People are buying on last click attribution, vanity URL, code redemption, and those things can get leaked as well, as we can get into.
Yeah.
So
This goes back though to my initial point where it's like, how do you gauge success here? Like if the brand is happy with like the vibes or like what they're seeing in terms of results, does any of this matter? Like if they're seeing conversions on what they're trying to sell, or if they're seeing brand recognition and awareness, like who cares? And at the same time, like they should be getting what they pay for. And Jonas, to your point, what I will say to that, and I've seen this across not nearly as many shows as you have, but Apple and Spotify always have much, much higher consumption per episode. YouTube is always a much worse curve. And when an episode goes viral or is like has a big ad campaign behind it or marketing campaign, you see a much closer to like a hockey stick curve on Apple and Spotify too.
Reverse up. Can I speak to does it even matter? The question earlier was, does any of this even matter if the campaigns perform? And I think this is such a great point, because I love talking about audience verifications and who was there. Yeah. Well, if the brand spends money and then because of the spend they make money over here, and hopefully they make more money than they spent, all good.
Yeah.
There is no problem. So. In fact, don't worry about it. You don't have to know how the sausage is made. If your campaign is performing and you can measure that, good for you. Don't do anything. However, there are a number of products available out there that do not require coupon code, where people do not go to a website. If I'm making a decision between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, we don't work with either of those companies, happy to work with them. I'm not using a coupon code, right? I'm at the store and I'm like picking one of them, right? Those are the kind of advertisers that we believe are currently not investing because they don't have the attribution, they don't have the data. They at least want to see like, well, has someone even heard the ad?
There it is.
So let me jump in on there because we work with Molson Coors, which no one's buying Coors Light online. That's crazy. But a client like Molson Coors, they're fun because they actually really invest in audio. Like they really enjoy the audio, and what they're looking for is more of that engagement creator kind of content. They look for the sponsorships. They want to be involved in the World Cup or in baseball, and they want to like have their name connected. So it's not necessarily something that's as performance driven as most of our clients. They still care about it in some way because they're a brand, and at the end of the day, they need to provide positive ROI, but
Yeah. But somebody has a boss somewhere who's going to want to see a number.
Right. And so it's just a little bit of a different narrative when we look at those kinds of campaigns, where it's not necessarily we're going to bring you a CPA that is XX. Like, no, it's here's how we're showing up. Here's the kind of content that's being created. Here's the kind of involvement that we need to have. It matters.
So I am also curious, with all the changes that we're seeing, all these platforms just integrated Spotify video to make it a lot easier to publish video to the platform. Everything that's happening next month with Apple, every podcast under the sun trying to move over to YouTube and figure out like their video strategy. I mean, we just talked a little bit about like how you guys are selling and buying ads on video, and I know that like this is only going to apply to like the lucky few in the beginning, and then eventually we're going to see a lot more people who are buying ads on the platform. We're going to see programmatic, hopefully, or dynamic at least at some point soon on video. What do you guys think we're going to be talking about in 2 years or in 5 years, like if we have this exact conversation?
I think the CTV integration. I think all these podcasts showing up on Netflix and Hulu and Tubi, that's starting now. We know that's starting now. I think that's going to be. I mean, we started talking about video 5 years ago, and here we are still talking about it. So that's not. Hopefully video by that time we have a better hold on, but I think the how we're monetizing cross-channel in that way, where it's still a podcast, but it's now in a new space, I think that's going to be a conversation that's still going to be very top of mind.
yeah, I think we're going to be replacing television. I said it on stage earlier with you. I do feel like, shameless plug here. We're on MS Now at 9 p.m. Our first thing was last week. I think a lot of these shows are going to be replacing.
How did that perform, by the way?
I can get you the data and get back to you.
Were you all happy with it?
I think we were, yeah. I think for the most part, it's a interesting dynamic, right? In the sense that a lot of the late night news channels demographic are my parents, and they're in their 70s and 80s, right? Like, our audience is millennial to Gen Z, right? And so these people are starting to see that they need to make investments in content that's already being consumed. And if they don't, it's existential for their business models, right? Because these people aren't going to be around. I hope my parents are there for a long time. But to your point, and to yours, like, we need to be able to see what's happening across these things. And the fragmentation and or the diversification of media makes it a little bit more complicated. So, like, we would love to be working with Pepsi, Coke. We did something with Molson Coors in the past. Probably shouldn't say that. I get in trouble for it. But, I think for us, like, it's about our content becoming mainstream. Like, it took us long enough to get people to believe in this channel as a whole. And this channel is here, right? You need to be aware of it. You need to be involved in it. You need to work with people like Taylor and Jonas, and hopefully myself, to make sure that the audiences that we are delivering towards, you're reaching. Because if you're not, you're going to be left in the dust by your competition. A lot of the brands that you've launched, that I've launched, even these performance brands, like, they become mainstays, right?
Yeah.
And they did that through podcasting. Well, an election was, I wouldn't say decided, but it was heavily influenced through podcasting. And right now, this is becoming television. And if people do not consider that a place to be, then, that's on them.
Yeah. I think, well, what are your predictions?
Okay. I'm avoiding the question by maybe talking about what's not going to change.
Okay.
Okay, so podcasting will still build strong, meaningful relationships with audiences that are different than, say, in my opinion, a relationship between a social influencer and an audience. People keep coming back to our shows. High retention rates, high loyalty, we measure that. How often do people come back? And that's worth a lot. I mean, the financial value is not in the content, it's in the audiences that we build through the content, right? It's not going to change. Might be video, might be audio, it's probably going to be both. People have been using, and I think this is a quote that YouTube likes to use, people have been using TV sets as radio for many, many years, right? My parents, TV was on in the background. No one's been watching that thing. It was just like it was just sound in the background. So video, audio, I'm avoiding the question. It doesn't really matter. We're going to continue to have amazing relationship with audiences, and we can monetize that, and we will monetize that, and it's going to be worth more than other media channels. This is great. All this is great news. I'm, of course, biased on the data side. We're going to use a different currency to monetize that. That actually doesn't mean like people are going to make more or less money. It just means better money.
Yeah.
And the data, the big thing about data that we have is that there are some actors in this industry right now that use arbitrary systems to buy a bunch of downloads and then sell those downloads to advertisers. We know those people do that. We all have worked with these people. We've all heard these kind of stories. Fine, they can do whatever they want, but they're messing up for the rest of us, right? Because an advertiser buys over there and they say like, well, podcasting is clearly not working for me, and they're out, right? No, we can't have that, right? We need to continue to build the trust with the advertisers as well. So I think there on the data side we can do, and we will do a lot over the next 2 years.
Yeah, the distribution model doesn't matter. It's all about building a community and then selling ads to that community, or whatever you're going to do with that community.
I actually have one more here.
Sure.
Something that I also think we're going to be talking about is more of the talent contracts. And what I mean by that is we've seen in the past couple of years a lot of these big name people who've come in who didn't make their start in podcasting. They made their start in something else, and they're like, oh, I'm going to launch a podcast. And that's great, brings in more people, but they are not creator-first content. They are celebrities or wannabe celebrities who want to have a podcast. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is as these big names keep jumping from network to network and these contracts get signed, what we have seen is those DR brands who care about the performance and who care about the relationships are getting booted by these big brands who don't necessarily care about that kind of thing. So there's a lot of over insertion, like there's too many ads in episodes because there's too much monetization. So I think that's part of it. But really when it comes down to the talent itself, they don't care about as much as these creators who care about their podcast, who care about their audience. And so we've seen a lot of struggles trying to get things on behalf of our clients. And these contracts that these big networks have with these talents don't account for what the industry is doing and what the industry wants to do. So Crooked is actually great at this. Like your creators are creator first kind of people who care about the client, who want to do right, who are easy to work with. But then you have these big name celebrities who come in who they don't care that we're, even if we're dropping like $50,000 in their podcast or more, that's nothing to them. Like this isn't, and so we're having a hard time with some of the contracts and negotiations that we're doing, because at the end of the day, the network talent contacts are not signing in the ways that they need to. So I think we're going to see a shift in how some of these big players enter this space and how a lot of the brands can work with them.
And I've heard a handful of horror stories where big celebrity signs a contract with a publisher and publisher forgets to include anything about them reading the ads. And then they lose a ton of money on the podcast. I want to move on to the next bucket. I'm going to go quick on this one because I hate this topic. But how are you guys using AI in your day-to-day right now? Let's start with you, Giancarlo.
Just answered this on stage an hour and a half ago. At Crooked, we believe in innovation. We want to use all the tools at our disposal. We also are, our production staff is unionized with WJ East. So
pro-human.
We are definitely pro-human. We think that what makes our content and our sort of ecosystem and our stuff unique is the fact that we do not want AI to replace people, right? But at the same time, we realize that it's an absolutely useful tool. I use it. We, are obviously using it to track air checks, sometimes, send emails or, review data sets. These are things that we use it on the daily. And obviously we want it to be additive, not replacing for the most part.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
We typically use it most in our produced audio for our different advertisers. So if we need something that we can turn around quickly, client's open to it, doesn't need an actual voiceover, we've used it in that instance. We use it to QA.
Are these generic voices that you're using?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We work with a third-party company that produces AI ads, which is pretty crazy. How sometimes they sound really good. Sometimes you can tell that they're AI.
Yep.
On the flip side of that, we've also had to include language in our orders that we send out about the ads need to be human voices. It can't be AI because
2026, baby.
Right. Because we've had instances where the ads come in and we're like, hold on, this is not right. This is not a real person. So that's been an interesting thing to kind of navigate too.
Yeah. Okay. Would you ever consider having AI generated voices using the host voices? Would you be okay with that?
Yes. For the right client.
Okay.
Yeah, for the right client. I think it's very interesting, but I also think you lose that authenticity that we love so much in podcasting. That's why we're here. If it is a really, really low rate and I'm trying to test something new, sure, I'm open to it.
Is that an answer for the celebrity issue that you were just talking about?
Yes and no. The celebrity issue is more in terms of exclusivity and something a little bit more custom. So I definitely would not use anything AI for anything custom. People are going to see through that. If it's just a normal, I wouldn't use it at all if there's any kind of video component at all, because again, that's going to feel fake.
Yeah.
I don't want it to feel fake. If I do something host AI, I would want it to be very believable.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Are you guys using it for research at all? Maybe on shows that you want to book on or something?
We use it yes and no. We do have some publisher partners that we use who use AI who can who can search the client's webpage, and you can put in demo information and it will go through their entire roster of things. It'd be like, hey, we think these are shows that would be good for you.
Headgum has something like that.
Yeah, Headgum has something like that.
Yeah.
Which is really neat.
Yeah.
So those kinds of research tools are super helpful.
I really like Gumball a lot.
Oh, I do too. I think they've done some incredible things.
Yeah. Cool. Jonas?
So a large part of our business is consulting. as you might know, we work with people, help them grow their shows, help them figure out how to use data better. There's actually, for us, a limited application for AI there, because we've learned that people hire us because they want to talk to a human.
Yeah.
It's actually like kind of important. That is for people that want to like interact with someone and sort of solve the problems between humans. I think that's a personality thing. I think there's certain things people ask us where they could just ask AI, but they don't want to.
Yeah.
Just like when I have a thing, I want to talk to a doctor. I guess they could ask AI, but I'd rather just like, it's just a personal choice, I think. And lots of our clients, I think, make that choice. They want to talk to a human. So on the, we do like some research and like so the usual stuff that people might use AI for. Since it's not that relevant for us for the consulting side, but of course on the platform side, so the Bumper dashboard, which is essentially a piece of software development is interesting in 2026. Right? Spent a lot of money on that thing.
Yeah.
Making it. It's quite easy to replicate now, right?
Yeah.
If we had that 2 years ago. But of course we started using it right now. We, like any other software company right now, needs to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Speaking of vibes.
Speaking of vibes, that's right. The value of the software itself that at least we build and many other people build is maybe not zero right now, but heading towards zero, right?
Yeah.
Someone could just replicate it quite easily, right? So the value that we're adding, luckily, that's not actually where we're adding the value. Like the actual thing, the code is cool and we spend a lot of money on it, but that could be replicated. It's more like the install base and the sort of knowledge behind it. So it's an interesting space for us, AI.
Interesting. I didn't expect you to say that, but good answer. Next bucket is consolidation. And typically when we're talking about this, we're talking about like Spotify buying Megaphone or, Art19 going to Amazon and Wondery and all this stuff. I feel like people speak less about the acquisitions on the sales side. Libsyn buying AdvertiseCast, Veritone, Performance Bridge, Oxford Road, Omnicom and IPG. So my question is, should publishers be worried about all of the consolidation in the industry on the sales side? Like, are there going to be fewer buyers and more publishers?
I don't think so. I think that there's definitely a pool of people that I wish I had more time to talk to. I feel like personally at Cricut, I'm spread so thin that I don't have enough time to like field calls from every single person at Ad Results or our other partners or agencies or direct clients we work with. I think there's always a space, not to steal from you, for that people interactions and connections. Because when you can prove something out to someone or to a client, for instance, your worth is almost more so. I think, listen, like as long as we're transparent about what we're doing and we're able to deliver that message as an industry, there will always be people who we can, show case studies of why they should be advertising with us. Listen, if there are ways that we can help other places come in through consolidation, great. If it's consolidating and then putting money towards one thing, I'm more worried about junior people when we're not trying to get back to AI, having the skill set, because all of us have had to do our jobs from the ground up. And that's not a bad thing to say, but when you're limiting those positions,
Yeah.
I think that's potentially an existential crisis, not for the ad agencies, but for us all, because then we're losing that knowledge share that, we may be able to prompt something that they may not have they may have that done for them, but they might not understand why it's doing it.
Yeah. So they have the answer, but not the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the mergers or the consolidation, I don't think we need to be worried about there being less people to talk to or because this space is still growing. Like
Correct.
audio is still growing. We still have brands who come in who this is an experiential space for them. Like we're not slowing down anytime soon.
Put another way for both of you guys, I guess. Are there going to be the lucky few publishers, like the 1% of the publishing world? The favorites of like the fewer buyers.
There'll always be favorites in this industry. That's gonna just happen.
I think what works, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say that it's going to be challenging to launch, but I do think that given how fragmented the space is, it's probably going to be more difficult for buyers to find the next big thing without trying things that they're maybe not accustomed to doing right out of the gates. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
No, I agree with that. Let me noodle on it.
Okay, I'll come back to you because Jonas, I have a slightly different version of this question for you. You have been experimenting with your baked-in version of your verified listen version of the buys. I hope I'm not spilling any beans here, but I know that you have like kind of come up with a little bit of resistance to those buys. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so what's happening right now, we have multiple campaigns right now in market where we are buying ads. These ads are typically promoting other podcasts, our clients' podcasts. And we are measuring differently how many people we're reaching. And we actually, we call this verified impressions. We measure how many times did someone actually make it to the ad break, whether it's a pre-roll or post-roll or mid-roll, it doesn't really matter. Verifiably, how many people make it to an ad. So we do this right now. We talk about resistance. There was a moment, and I'll be very honest and transparent here, where we thought, you know what? We need to blow this whole thing up. Let's get rid of right now, get rid of impressions they were served right now. Download, let's just this is not working. We should trade in verified impressions. This is all we should do. That was a little naive. This is resistance. When we realized the resistance from the publisher side, it was sort of not surprising because there's a system that works, like blowing that up. Ugh. But from the buy side, we had the same resistance. People saying like, we built these systems and these price sheets and the trust. That's where we got the resistance and we were a little naive. Right now, the way we're looking at what we call verified impressions, we're looking at it as a post-campaign measurement tool, saying, we're still going to trade exactly the way we're at now, and you can negotiate the price as you always did. Nothing's going to change. But after the fact, let's just measure this kind of more, even though it doesn't measure attribution, but kind of more like a Podscribe or Magellan, where after the fact you would see like, okay, the campaign is done, all good, this is great. Let's look at what the numbers actually say, because that can then inform future campaigns. That's the way we're looking at it right now.
So the reason I ask that question now is because, and maybe this is too big of a leap for me to make, but I'm wondering if there is like a bigger resistance to change in the way that things are working today on the buy side, and if that gap is going to widen if we have fewer buyers. So that is a fear of mine, and I'm wondering if the consolidation is going to kind of just continue that trend. And again, maybe this is too big of a leap, but that's one thing that I'm kind of worried about.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's something to be worried about in any kind of near future. I think that there are always going to be different go-to-market strategies, no matter, I mean, even if everything converges into one at the end of the day, like there's always going to be a different go-to-market strategy because each client comes in with different goals and expectations and how they want to show up. So while it might come from fewer places, if there's more brands in the space and there's still the need, you're still gonna have, like, it might not be your favorite people that you're working with anymore, or it might be a different way that we're looking at it, but I don't think that we're losing out on how, I mean, okay, from the agency side, I hate it, right? Like, I hate it, but I don't think that it should necessarily scare the publishers or the network partners.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that.
What about this? So if there's consolidation, this is your fear, right? Consolidation and too much power in that, and they can sort of dictate not just terms and also how we trade.
Drive prices down, buy from the same 100 shows.
Yeah. But doesn't that also open up some space for someone new to come in? A boutique agency could do some buying that maybe does it differently.
Sure.
Maybe only buys a certain way, or buys on certain shows, or does a certain...
Silver lining.
I also think you open it up to the brands who want to buy direct, who don't want to work with the big names.
And I would also say we've always in this industry had change forced upon us. Like when I started buying, and probably you as well, we were buying baked in ads. Like we didn't have a ton of visibility, and then everyone's like, everything's dynamic now. We're like, okay, how does this work, right? You don't have enough ad ops people to put my little pixel in there. Half of my ads are going out without that. Like, are you going to fix this? No, we're just going to, I think that obviously change is the key to innovation, as you just rightfully pointed out, and there will be people who come around.
Well, thank you guys for easing my fears. I don't like change.
I don't like change either.
But, so thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was really, really amazing. I appreciate everything, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
For more podcast-related news, info, and takes, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Jeff Umbro. Podcast Perspectives is a production of the Podglomerate. If you're looking for help producing, marketing, or monetizing your podcast, you can find us at podglomerate.com. Shoot us an email at listen@thepodglomerate.com or follow us on all socials at PodglomeratepOds. This episode was produced by Chris Boniello and myself, Jeff Umbro. This episode was edited and mixed by Jose Roman. Thank you to our marketing team, Joni Deutsch, Madison Richards, Aaron Weiss, and Sheba Joseph. And a special thank you to Dan Christo.